Hello, you're watching the interview here on France 24. Well, is Donald Trump falling apart? U.S. media reports in recent weeks have portrayed a president who seems to be losing the plot. Vanity Fair cited two sources saying Trump vented to his security chief that he, quote, hates everyone in the White House. 9 months into his presidency, polls show Trump is deeply disliked in much of the world. But they also reveal that he's the least popular new president in U.S. history. Now, we all know Trump has defied pollsters before, and some warn he may very well do so again and even perhaps be reelected in 3 years' time. Unless, well, unless what? Here to help me with that unless part, my guest today, Nelson Cunningham. Nelson, you are a Washington insider. You have had your pulse on U.S. politics, Washington politics, for decades. I can go down the list, the short list, former special advisor to President Bill Clinton. You also served as a member of the Obama-Biden transition team. Before that, you were on John Kerry's 2004 presidential campaign. You worked with him on a Senate race. I can go on and on. You know Washington. You know U.S. politics. And today, you are also president co-founder of McClarty Associates, right, based in Washington, and you're here in Paris as part of that role. It's an advisory firm, basically, and you help foreigners to understand what's going to happen next back in Washington. Let me cut to the chase with you on this question. I asked, is Donald Trump falling apart? We saw a Senate race recently in Alabama, right? Didn't get world headlines, but Donald Trump endorsed the wrong candidate. The candidate he didn't pick ended up winning the Republican primary race there. Some see that as a turning point, an inflection point. What do you think?
In that election, Trump supported the establishment candidate. The Republican head of the Senate, Mitch McConnell, encouraged him to support the establishment candidate. And I believe that Trump, going against his own instincts, supported that candidate. Guess what? The insurgent candidate won, who is, in fact, in many respects, a Trump clone, won that primary battle. And I think Trump realized that he had backed the wrong horse. His instincts were to back the insurgent, and he instead backed the establishment candidate. I think next year, in our midterm elections, we're going to see Donald Trump supporting a lot of insurgents within his own party.
What about this fact, though, that we keep returning? It seems like we constantly talk about this. We've been here before. Donald Trump is stuck with his base. His base has been basically his diehard supporters, his constituency. And most Republicans, when you look at the polls, continue to support him, 8 out of 10. Isn't that, at the end of the day, all that matters to Donald Trump?
It certainly matters to him when looking at his control of the Republican Party. Every Republican lawmaker is terrified that the Trump base will turn against him or that Trump will turn that base against him. And this will allow Trump next year in our midterm elections, I believe, to help shape the Republican Party more in his image. And that puts the political fear of God into Republicans. At the same time, he dangles in front of them things they want: tax cuts, conservative members of the Supreme Court. He dangles in front of them their long-term goals. So he keeps them loyal and he keeps them fearful.
I don't quite understand. Help our viewers understand some of the numbers here. I said in the opening that the polls show he's one of the least popular presidents, new presidents in U.S. history. I think his approval rating as of last week, Gallup, YouGov, or Economist poll, 36%. How does he continue to sort of take all the hits and keep on coming, so to speak, given those numbers?
Yeah. Well, for the moment, his party still controls the House and the Senate. And for the moment, on most matters, he can align with them, again, because he's giving them what they want on key issues. Now, right now, he's proposing tax cuts. Longtime Republican goal. What happens when you get through tax cuts? What will he use to keep his party unified? And then what will happen in the elections next November? Will Republicans run with Trump or will they run against Trump?
Are they still afraid, though? Are they still, most Republicans, afraid to speak out against Trump? We are seeing some doing so, more and more, yeah.
Yes, and Trump is going to be looking to try to discipline those people by running candidates against them. He is taking sides. Ronald Reagan had a famous saying, the Republican 11th commandment, never speak ill of a fellow Republican. And Donald Trump is violating that left, right, and center. He will be taking sides in primary races, such as we've not seen before, to try to shape the party more in his image with the help of, say, Steve Bannon, still on the outside.
Now, you have worked with, some of the highest profile Democrats in U.S. politics, right up to the Oval Office. What are the Democrats saying right now? The narrative in the U.S. is sort of the Democrats are in disarray. They can't get their act together. What's going to happen next year in the midterms? Are the Democrats fearful about them, or?
No, Democrats are as excited as I've seen them about midterm elections since 2006, when you remember in the wake of the Iraq War, Nancy Pelosi became Speaker of the House and threw out the Republican majority. Donald Trump is the most powerful unifying force that Democrats could imagine. Battles over the direction of health care, battles over tax policy, any disagreements Democrats have with each other are nothing compared to their opposition to Donald Trump.
Okay, so they're united in their opposition to Donald Trump. But let me just throw out the devil's advocate argument. Someone that I know you know in Washington, Doug Sosnick, a Democratic strategist, wrote recently a column in the Washington Post newspaper basically saying Donald Trump is on track to win again in 2020. Let me repeat that. Donald Trump has another 7 years in office. What do you say to that?
Yeah. I like Doug enormously. I admire Doug enormously. I also know that Doug knows exactly how to get attention. And this is a column that got everyone's attention. It was very well argued. I think at the end of the day, you cannot go from 36, 37% and approval rating and claw your way up to close to 50%. If I'm a Democrat, and I am, I'm looking at the midterm races, and I'm looking at many opportunities in the House and the Senate, and I'm looking at 2020, the presidential election, and I'm sharpening my utensils.
I said you were a Washington insider. I didn't mean that in a pejorative way at all, Nelson. But among the people that you know and you have seen, if not recently, relatively recently, both the former FBI director, James Comey, but also Joseph Biden, former vice president. What's Biden thinking? Is he going to run again in 2020? You've spoken to him.
Well, Senator Biden, Vice President Biden, I should say, I still call him Senator. Vice President Biden knows how to keep the camera's attention. He's a master of it. I think he will keep his cards close to his vest, but he will maintain a substantial public profile.
But he's thinking about it.
He's thinking about it.
Is John Kerry as well? You've worked with John Kerry?
Well, I think any of these senior figures look at Donald Trump. They say, look, he's my age or he's 2 years younger. I can take that guy, and I'd like to be the guy to take him down. So I think there are a lot of people looking at themselves in the mirror and saying, why not me?
So as long as the Democrats can sort of show unity and being united against Donald Trump, you think they have not just a good chance at the presidency 2020, but also these midterms, which could change the whole equation in Washington?
Yes. I mean, we remember Barack Obama lost the control of the House after his first 2 years, and effectively the rest of his presidency was just executive orders. Right. And that's why Donald Trump has found it so easy to undo all those executive orders.
This is what I wanted to sort of end with, or glide towards the end with. The fact that Donald Trump has, a lot of people have said, he's the anti-Obama. He's almost waged his presidency as a vendetta against Barack Obama's legacy. Beginning with one of your specialty areas, the free trade pacts, NAFTA. What's happening with that? It seems that he is hell-bent on undoing this free trade agreement. Yeah. Is that going to happen?
Yes. I believe the president is dead set on upending the entire trade architecture that his bipartisan predecessors have put together. He pulled us out of the Trans-Pacific Partnership talks that Obama negotiated. I believe he will withdraw from NAFTA or cause the NAFTA talks to collapse in the imminent future. He might pull us out of the Korea Free Trade Agreement, and then he'll start looking at other agreements. Will there ever be a TTIP, transatlantic pact, as President Obama wanted? Not under this president.
Let me end with this. I'll ask you, you have been an advisor to many key people. Who has Donald Trump's ear right now? A lot was made when Stephen Bannon, his sort of chief advisor, strategist, what do you want to call him, left the White House. We were talking before the show. You suggested Steve Bannon is very much still exerting a lot of influence.
I think it's evident that he is. He went back to Breitbart News, his platform, and from there he wields an amazing megaphone straight to Donald Trump's core supporters. He can motivate them. They can motivate not just Trump, but also the Republican politicians, because they control the primary levers and they control the fear.
Is
Steve Bannon
a senior Republican, not to get too inside American politics, but his name's Bob Corker, for our international viewers. He recently got a lot of headlines because he came out against Donald Trump and called the White House an adult daycare center. Grabbed headlines. Is Donald Trump, is it spinning out of control there? Does he listen? Does he actually listen to anyone at the end of the day, despite what you just said?
Well, first of all, there are a lot of Republicans, I believe, who share Corker's views, but those who are running for re-election are muzzling themselves. Bob Corker announced he was not running for re-election, and that allowed him to speak his mind. There are many people who...
He was safe.
Yeah, he was...
From the tweets.
Exactly. He's safe to speak his mind. I think a lot of Republicans wish they could speak that candidly in public about him. We can't ignore the Mueller investigation. I think the president feels increasingly beleaguered by the Russia investigations and by his inability to get wins through the Congress. A beleaguered Donald Trump is something to contemplate. Final
thing, very briefly, before we go. If you had to choose, if we are to say Donald Trump is not going to serve out his full term for in the next 3 years, something's going to bring him, what is it going to be? You have a multiple choice. You ready? Is it going to be impeachment? Is it going to be resignation? Is it going to be Bob Mueller, something he turns up? Or none of the above, something totally unforeseen, some debacle of his own making?
I think Mueller will produce a report that will shock Washington in its detail and its thoroughness. And I think that will give cause for the Congress, especially if the Democrats have taken the House next year, that will give the Congress something to really chew on when it comes to impeachment.
And that gives all of us something to chew on. Nelson Cunningham, thank you very much for being here today, a former special advisor to Bill Clinton and a lot of other senior Democrats in Washington who knows U.S. politics, Washington politics, as well as anyone out there. Perhaps Donald Trump will not serve out his full term. Stay tuned. Watch this space. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.
Middle East Matters, presented by Sanam Chantier.
Keep up to date on the latest from the Middle East. We bring you political, economic, and cultural events from the region in this weekly Middle Eastern program.
Middle East Matters on France 24 and France24.com.